Thank you very much, Rebecca. And I can certainly vouch for Rebecca's comment about being very fun to ride on these bikes. I was lucky enough to have a test ride, and it was such an amazing, lovely feeling to just get on the bike and zoom along, feel the wind in your hair. Like we now have around 20 minutes of Q&A time. So it's your opportunity to access these amazing experts and quiz them on their subject matter. To do that, if you scroll down below the video that you're viewing, there's a question area. So click on the Ask a Question blue button and type in your question. Then I'll be able to share it with our presenters here. So there's a couple of questions waiting for us already. And the first one is for Russ. So Russ, I think actually Graeme touched on this a little bit in his presentation, but if you can expand on it a bit, do you have problems with converting a fairly recent vehicle with all the computers on board that you need to work with?
Yes and no. We've had challenges doing that, but we've developed the techniques to be able to stub those ECUs out and read and replay the CAN bus messages back. So, for example, we've got an Audi which we converted a while back, which is has ECUs just about everywhere, and so we managed to that car is frankly awesome because there's no clue when you get in the driver's seat that it's been converted to electric. There's no dials, extra dials or anything like that. The fuel gauge is the electric gauge. The temperature gauge will read. There's no error warning lights. Being an Audi, it's pretty sensitive to anything that you do. But we've managed to pull it off, and like I said, we're already working on another vehicle, a modern Hilux, and we'll have to do the same with that vehicle as well. So it's not for the faint-hearted. What I say to people is with these conversions, and Graeme will back me up on this hopefully, that it takes an ensemble of skills to be able to pull this off. You need coding, electronics, high voltage expertise, fabrication, to name just a few, to be able to, that's before you get into the mechanical side obviously as well. So and like Graeme said, the simpler the car is, the easier it is to convert, but the more modern you go, then it becomes more of a challenge, I guess, really. Hope that answers the question. Basically, it's possible, but it takes some doing, yeah. You're on mute, Natalie.
Thank you.
That's all right.
You mentioned that ensemble of skills that's required for that kind of task. If we're trying to scale this up and do a lot more conversions, do we actually have the skills available in Australia, or is that another aspect we need to be considering?
We've been recruiting, yeah, no, absolutely. So we've been recruiting for a while now, actually, and it's a real struggle for to bring people on board that actually understand. We get a lot of people who are excited about the technology, but they don't know anything about it, and it's without going into too much detail, I can see Rebecca and Graeme nodding their heads about this, but it's a real struggle to find people who know something about it and aren't just excited, but also know how dangerous these things can be. And to be frank, some of the voltages that we're working at the moment, they're like 380 volts, and you don't get even a single chance with that if you get it wrong. You either damage something expensive or you kind of hurt yourself quite badly. So yeah, so in terms of that, there's training I think is required, and I know that's coming.
So there's opportunities there as part of the COVID recovery to be upskilling people.
Absolutely. I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. So there's very, very much so that there's a need for training, not just for the conversions, but also for the vehicles that we're seeing. We offer servicing for electrical vehicles, and we didn't imagine we would do that. To be frank, that wasn't really on our roadmap, but we've done that, and it's quite clear that there are techniques required for, not that electric cars need all that much servicing, but they still need specialized tools and expertise so you know what you're doing with them, and processes, etc. And for example, I know there's in a number of cases that OEM dealerships may not have those skills, may not have been trained, and all that kind of stuff. So, but I'm sure they'll get on top of it soon enough.
So sticking with that topic of skills, Graeme, you're dual qualified, motor mechanic and auto electrician. Would there be many people with that combination of skills?
Oh, I imagine so. Here in Queensland, the MTAQ are pushing very hard to get auto electricians to upgrade to motor mechanics and motor mechanics to upgrade to auto electricians. It's a great organisation, the MTAQ. They are pushing to increase the level of expertise because they see more and more EVs becoming commonplace, and therefore you need both those skills really to service and work on them. So in my field here, I've got exactly the same problem as getting staff that are capable and teachable. That's a problem. But yeah, having both those trades behind me has definitely helped.
Yeah.
And are there issues? Coming for us in terms of that motor mechanic workforce becoming less relevant if they're solely motor mechanics as EVs become more common?
I think we're heading for this learning curve. We already are in a way. I mean, I've repaired a few Nissan Leafs here, failed chargers and all sorts of things, and I'm doing a lot of work on Mitsubishi IMEBs at the moment as well. And it's not a learning curve. It's an upright line on the piece of paper. Everything you come across, you've got to sit down and spend days researching, trying to work out the technology you use and educate yourself. And if all of a sudden there were 10 times those sort of repairs hitting workshops around the country, those cars would be off the road. So the training at the moment on factory cars particularly is huge. It needs to be pushed so hard, and it's not really.
I think it's worse than that, actually. I think it's worse simply because I look on horror on certain Facebook groups, and it's across the board, whether it's electric bikes or electric cars or conversions or whatever, where people who have no clue other than they've watched a couple of Jahu Garcia videos giving advice out in terms of how to connect batteries up, how to bond balance, how to do all this kind of stuff. You go, well, you don't know what you're doing. You have no clue, but then you feel empowered to be able to provide advice in a public forum. So I think that's the scary proposition in that, I think as a collective we make it look easy, and it's easy to pick up some information, but as they say, a little knowledge is dangerous. And look, it's kind of scary when you see some of this awfulness. The advice you'd never dream of giving advice about installing a PowerPoint in your home or whatever. You would never do that. But 380 volts DC on a car, that's perfectly fine apparently in Facebook now. So anyway.
So what regulation is there, Russ and Graeme? Like, what certification processes are required for DIY conversions?
If I'll go first, again, coming back to the MTAQ, they've got a bit of foresight there, and they're offering the hybrid and battery electric vehicle course, but they're only giving that to qualified mechanics and auto electricians at this stage. But for somebody working from home, what we've been doing is trying to dumb it down. So nowadays we're supplying complete wiring looms, and we're giving as much instruction as we can, giving them a lot of heads up on how to do these things. So there's a lot of time spent with a client to explain to them what to do safely, but they always have the option to bring the project to us and let us do, which a lot do. They bring the car to us and we finish off the electrical wiring for them where the danger is, if you like, So that's the safest way I can go, is to offer them that we can do that, and we recommend that they bring the vehicle to us and let us do the high voltage wiring side of it. It gives us a chance to have a look over and see if they've made any glaring errors, and occasionally you pick the odd one up. But that's the best we can do. Was there a course? Is there a course? Well, I hope to create one, but time being the problem, I hope to do Saturday afternoon courses and try to teach people about these things.
Yeah.
So what about requirements for registrations? Are there particular hurdles for DIY conversions?
Well, I think it's different in every state, or slightly different, but there's anybody can look up the NCOP 14, which is a national code of practice, and that gives the from a federal government point of view what we're supposed to be doing, what the main points are that we need to look at when we're doing a conversion. But when we do it, we have in Queensland, every other state, there is a certified mechanical engineer that needs to sign off and blue plate or put a plate on the vehicle to say that structurally is fine, and that all the components put in the right way, that the right amount of insulation's done, that everything's right. It's not a requirement, but we think it should be. But we also get a certified electrical engineer to come along and do something called a mega test, and to check out for high voltage pack leakage to the chassis, make sure the 240 volt wiring is all safe and intact, and to double check things like the 12 volt and the controllers and stuff like that. So it's a pretty simple test, takes about an hour, and we get them to actually issue a certificate, which we give with the vehicle.
Yeah, if I can just jump in there as well. What we do to mitigate this is we offer obviously conversion kits, and when we say kits, they're actually drop-in. So for the Land Rovers, their battery boxes are fully populated with the BMS in, with the battery balance and all that kind of thing. So they should literally just kind of drop in, bolt in, and connect up. So all that technicality is, to a certain extent, is taken care of behind the scenes. And the other thing is, look, we've been running to help with some of this education and correct some of the falsehoods that we've seen in social media. We've been running a series of live streams on our YouTube channel, Evolution, and we've just been doing that, every Wednesday night for the last few months actually. So they're well worth having a look at if you want to get into it. Some of the stuff has been really technical actually, which amazing hasn't scared that many people off. So it's worth having a look at if you're interested. Check that out. Whoever's watching to go through. And there's been some amazing projects that people have built in their backyards, as Graeme suggested. And there's been, for example, an MGF, a Holden SQ, and all of this kind of stuff. So some really lovely projects that people can build their own backyard. So it can be done, absolutely. So it's worth checking that out for some inspiration for sure.
So Warren's asked you, Russ, do you plan to, or do you already use products like the Canadian Web Motorworks e-crate conversion as part of your your drop-in kits?
We're actually doing our own, if I'm honest. So,
yep.
Yeah. So we've got a modular solution for the vehicle. So we've got, for example, the Transit. That'll use the same drivetrain as one of the other vehicles we're using. So we're trying to standardize as much as possible to make it easier to drop in a motor solution for these vehicles.
So Rebecca, when you started up, were there conversion kits available just off the shelf, or was this something that you had to develop up?
They are available off the shelf on the internet. I mean, everything's available on eBay these days. So yeah, there are systems out there, but the quality varies dramatically, even from the connectors that are used and the waterproof nature of the products. The durability of the batteries is a big thing. So a lot of people are trying DIY bikes, and if they are lucky, they have the tools to actually install those. Chances are they may make some mistakes along the way, or they may have reliability issues or durability issues. We get asked often if we'll install kits that people have purchased online, and we don't engage in that. We'd have to take over the warranty of said products once we touch them. So, and we're constantly doing repairs on cheap end e-bikes as well, as we see LD selling e-bikes now, and JB Hi-Fi and all sorts of places, which is great. I mean, they're coming to the mainstream. This is exciting, and there's a price point that appeals to a different audience, and that's great too. But I think it can be damaging for the industry as a whole, or the product as a whole, because if people have a negative experience with a poor quality e-bike, they then tell stories about that it was the e-bike's fault and all e-bikes are rubbish and that sort of thing. So, which is simply not the case.
Yeah. Just on that, I might be a bit biased here, but Rebecca converted my bike to electric last year, and it's been awesome. And I ride it 25 k's each way every day, pretty much, when I get the opportunity. As long as it's not raining, it's absolutely awesome. And
glad to hear that.
yeah, no, it's great. And look, I'm bold enough to say that I wouldn't have had the patience to do it myself. Hence, I just said, please, Rebecca, can you just do this for me, because I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, you'll have to do my car soon, Russ.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it just forces the courses. The new thing to, again, not wanting to be biased, I'll be Rebecca up, but there's a vast difference between those bikes that you can get from Aldi and something that's been lovingly, crafted and created, and all the cables are, professionally managed and set up and all that kind of stuff. There's a vast difference between the two, in my opinion.
Can
also,
you give
the quality of sorry, Natalie, one thing, the quality of e-bike batteries out there in the world is it's a pretty scary thing, because most manufacturers take their cells all the way up to 4.2 volts each cell, and that's absolute maximum under manufacturers' recommendations. And so that shortens the life by pushing that much charge into them. And they also over deplete them. So same cells used in electric cars won't be that stressed. They'll be taken maybe up to 4.0 and depleted to 3.5 or so, whereas e-bike ones will go down to 3 volts, 2.9, and that halves or worse the lifespan. So we're seeing life cycles of 500 charges or that sort of thing, which is a big problem in the quality field as well.
Yeah, and on that as well, the quality of it's not about the motor, it's about the quality of the battery. And if you don't know what batteries are inside, then if you're getting something, the usual thing, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And if you see a bike which is, I don't know, however size the battery pack, but it's actually not, but it's too cheap, then that means there's cheap ass cells in there, and you won't get a very good life that way. And this applies to the cars as well, right? This is across the board.
So could you give us an idea of what's involved time and cost wise for conversions? Maybe Rebecca first on the bikes and
sure.
The others?
Yeah, so a conversion system will start from about $1,500, including our labour to install it. That would be with a hub motor and a smaller battery. And then it would go through to about $2,500 to $3,000 with a larger motor, larger battery. And we also package up the training. If people want to do our training, they can purchase a kit and install it themselves with our support for about $1,000 more than that on top of the kit cost.
And Russ and Graeme, can you give us it sounds like the sky's the limit, but...
Go on, Graeme, you go first, go on. All right, I'll go. The average is 12 to 16 weeks for us at the moment. It depends on what else we've got on the shop, and obviously supply chain constraints as well, because a lot of the stuff we get kitties from overseas, and also if the customer in particular desperately wants a Tesla pack or a Tesla motor, then we've got to wait for someone to crash their car, and that feels a little bit like an ambulance chaser, which is exactly what it is actually. So we try and avoid or talk people down from that, because that means it could take, and obviously if people aren't driving because of COVID, then it takes a whole lot longer for that unfortunate event to happen. Whereas if it's brand new batteries, out of China or what have you, which is still good quality and reasonable density, then we can simply raise a purchase order and get going. But long story short, 12 to 16 weeks, depending on what the customer requirement the customer wants. So we're working on a early 1970s cruiser. That's was it a 40, Land Cruiser 40, and the chap wants he wants a frunk, he wants proximity locks, he wants heated seats, he wants the whole lot, right? So that's going to be a long conversion, and so and he wants 500 k's of range. So there's a heap of work in there. to get that on. But yeah, 12 to 16 weeks for us is about the sweet spot.
Okay, just got time for a quick comment from Graeme if he wants to expand on that.
Oh yeah, look, I'm basically on the same page as Russell. If someone to do it themselves, you could probably get away with a tiny car without all the bells and whistles for 12 to 15, something like that. People doing it at home, if you really roll your sleeves up, I think 3 or 4 weekends you could have the job done. Right up to, I think the biggest we've done is a transit van with 160k range. I mean, a long wheelbase, high roof, big, heavy, light truck, really. That was just a touch under 50 grand. You know, so the sky is the limit. It's just people have got to be realistic. I mean, because we advertise a tiny little kit, some people ring up and say, "Oh yeah, well, I'll put that in a Land Cruiser." Well, it's insane. You can't put a tiny motor in a big car. But a lot of them don't understand. That's what we're here for, to educate them.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. And I'm sorry, there's unanswered questions, but maybe the speakers can address those in the chat afterwards, just to give people a bit more information. But thank you, Graeme, Rebecca and Russ, for really stimulating and fascinating conversations and great insight into the world that you're so heavily immersed in. And hats off again to the great leadership you're showing in this.
Thank you.
So everybody, yes, a big round of applause for all of you.
Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. That's really well done. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thanks to the ABA for organising it. This set has been absolutely fabulous. So good. Well done. Thank you.
Yeah. And thanks also
everyone.
to our sponsors who've made it all possible and made it happen. So that includes Evie, FIMA and the Green Road Loans product from Transport Mutual Credit Union, the Victorian State Government and Jet Charge. So a shout out to them. The next session is the plenary at 4 o'clock. So go and grab a quick drink and meet us back for what promises to be really lively and interesting discussion. So I'm looking forward to that. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you. Cheers. All the best.
Bye.
Bye.